So again, the question is, how do we do that shift of consciousness? But I think just thinking about it already, like, makes us internalize it on a deeper and deeper level, and becomes and allows us and helps us become more and more spiritual human beings, less involved with like what I have and what I want and what I don't have, and more involved with like, what is my spiritual life looking like? So we have the Dari's Yortzeit today, right? And Dari, and I was thinking about it. It's really interesting to see how Dari falls right on the 9 days, because in a way, Dari makes a very big spiritual shift in the world. It's not just that he brings a new level of understanding. It's not just that he brings a new sort of, not a new Torah, but a new teaching into the world. It's not really new, but in a way, in a new narrative, in a new language, right? It's that, it's actually very interesting. His rabbi slash chavruta slash student, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, who was older than him, I don't know if you know, but Дрори joined Tzfat when he was 36 years old. He was only there for 2 years. And in those 2 years, he made this tremendous change in the world and gave us all the gifts. It's not like he wasn't a great scholar before then for 20 years. He was already a rabbi when he was 20, and he was sitting and learning Torah for 20 years before then in Egypt. But then he came for about 20 years. And but then he joined Tzfat when he was 36, and he opened up this group of studies, or he joined, he joined Rav Moshe Cordovero, and he was learning with Rav Moshe Cordovero. And what Rav Moshe Cordovero said about him is that he said the Dari will bring a new light into the world. And at first he was his rabbi, but soon, very very soon after, everybody understood that Dari was much bigger. I mean, I don't want to, God forbid, I don't want to measure, but they were both amazing, and Rav Moshe Cordovero's books are amazing too, but Rav Moshe Cordovero's books are in a way much higher Kabbalah. They're like, it's amazing Kabbalah. It's amazing, there was Kabbalah before the Lurian Kabbalah too. Mm. There was Kabbalah from the time that we know our history, basically. But as I said, Dari brought a new level of understanding, a new narrative. But what Moshe Cordovero said about Dari, he said, in my time, my pipes are blocked, but in Dari's time, his pipes will be open to bring a new change into the world. Mm. And I was thinking, what did he mean by pipes? Like, why does he say his pipes are blocked? Because, in a way, Rav Moshe Cordovero's teachings are amazing too, but in a way, everybody's learning Rav Dari much, 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 much more than Rav Moshe Cordovero's pipes. And there was no real historic gap between them, because they really lived in the same time. Mm-hmm. But he really knew what he was saying, Rav Moshe Cordovero, prophesizing that Dari will actually be fortunate enough, will merit to bring a new light into the world in his narrative. Mm. And it was very interesting, because Rav Moshe Cordovero was, they asked him, who's going to be your successor? And he said, when you will be burying me, one of my students, he didn't say it was going to be Dari, he said one of my students will see the like a amud esh, amud anan, amud, how do you say, like a
column of fire?
Like a column of fire, a column of light. He said a column of light, and when the column of light will stop, you will know where to bury me, and the one who will see the column of light where to bury me is the one who will be my successor. Mm-hmm. And Dari was the one who told them where to bury him, and that's how they knew that Dari is the next. Mm. And so it's like really amazing that it falls on the 9 days, because, you know, the whole, you know, movement that started there, the whole light that started coming down into the world through Ddori, is the light that we need in order to bring Mashiach into the world. Because it's the whole light that we were talking about until now. It's not so much about what you're doing, it's much more about where your head is at while you're doing it. And Ddori is the first one to teach us in a much more concrete way, I would say, how to put our head in the right headspace. How to combine, then the Baal Shem Tov comes and takes us into a deeper level, a next stage basically. But really, like, it very much starts with Ddori. And the fact that it comes in the 9 days is just so symbolic to me, you know. Okay, so also, one of the most amazing stories about Ddori, that just, you know, symbolizes again so much the idea of being in the right godly headspace. So one time all the tzaddikim of Tzfat were dancing at this Sudat Mitzvah in Tzfat, and all of a sudden this poor schlepper comes into the room, and Ddori leaves all these great rabbis of Tzfat and starts dancing with this holy schlepper, like Shlomo would say. And after he leaves, the rabbis, they say, you know, like, why did you go dancing with the schlepper, right? It's like, and he said, didn't you see there was...
Ada, make it a little quieter too, sweetie.
Didn't you see there was Elijah the prophet? Right? So it's like, the question is, like, what do you see in people? Right? Shlomo used to be so strong on teaching us all the time. Do you see in every holy schlepper, do you see a schlepper? Or do you see Elijah the prophet in every person that comes in? Right? So it's like, you could be as religious as the chief rabbi of Israel, but if you don't see the holiness of every human being, then your religiosity is really kind of like not getting you anywhere. Because the whole idea of religiosity, of religiousness, of spirituality, is to bring us to a level of accepting each other on a different level. And if we're not doing that work with ourselves, if we're not managing to progress on fixing our relationships, on fixing our headspace, on fixing the world, then religiousness becomes like I don't know, like an empty cup of water without water, right? It's like, Rachel, you know, Jacob married Rachel and Leah, right? And Rachel symbolizes Malchut, which is the most earthly connection to Hashem in a way, right? Leah symbolizes Bina, right? Jacob knew that he should marry first Rachel, and then, you know, maybe he didn't know that he was going to marry Leah too, right? But he knew that he needed to marry Rachel. Why? Because Jacob was all about serving Hashem. What do we know about Jacob? We know about Jacob that he's Ish Tam Yoshev Alim. He's, we have a few more minutes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. He's Ish Tam Yoshev Alim. He's sitting in the tent learning Torah, dwelling in the Torah, right? So he knows that he needs Rachel to be a vessel for his Torah. What does it mean she needs to be a vessel for his Torah? A Torah that is not inside this world is a meaningless Torah. The Torah was not given to angels. The Torah was given to human beings to make this world a more lit world, to light up the world. If we are only sitting in the tent, dwelling in the Torah, without bringing the Torah into this dirty, muddy world, dark world, then we're basically taking the essence of the Torah away. Because the Torah comes to fix human beings. Not to fix angels, but to fix human beings. Sorry?
Is it okay if I say something?
Yeah, please.
Am I
Please.
I'm thinking, I was like, already from Bereshit, like we're already like imperfect, like
Right.
like we're imperfect human beings.
Right.
And it's like we're given the avoda to that's
To fix the world.
to
Right.
fix, yeah, to
Yeah.
break down yeah.
Right. But in Bereshit, it more talks, I think, about the physical levels of like 6 days you should work. But you could also take it on a spiritual level, because everything that the Torah says, even if it means it's sometimes physical, but you can definitely look at it from both sides and both aspects.
But you need the physical to bring into this.
Right. And it also says, you want to have Shabbos, you got to work for 6 days. Right? It doesn't only say keep Shabbos, it also says work for 6 days. Right?
And it's always a question like what the work is.
So the work could be the physical work of actually working your field and making money, or it could be the spiritual work, right? And only on Shabbos it actually says that even Gehenim is taking a break, right? We're taking a break. Spiritually, Hashem is giving us a break. We're not only not cooking and not working, right? We have more of a spiritual break than anything, right? Again, all the not cooking and whatever is just the backstage, right? But the rest of the week we got to do the work. So Yaakov knows that his Torah, without combining it with someone like Rachel who will bring it down into the world, is meaningless, right? But what does Lavan want to do? Lavan wants to destroy the world. So Lavan switches the game and sticks Leah in there, right? And he knew that was going to pull the carpet from beneath humanity's feet. Because he kind of like, I heard a very beautiful expression by this one rabbi, he's a French guy. He says, like, he basically brought the whole destruction into the world by bringing religiosity and secularity into the world right at that moment when he sticks Leah into that chuppah instead of letting Rachel getting married first with Jacob. Because by doing that, he basically says, Bina, spirituality, religiosity are the most important thing in the world. But religiosity and spirituality are meaningless if they're not given to human beings. Angels cannot improve themselves. Only human beings can improve themselves. Human beings need the Torah. Human beings need spiritual concepts in order for us to improve ourselves. If we're just sitting there, where do we meet it again? We meet it in Parashat Kedoshim, where it says, Kedoshim to you, be holy unto me. And Rashi says there, don't be holy in the base medrash, be holy in your life. Be holy in the routine of life. So in these days, and it's actually also very interesting to see that we're going through the 9 days as we're entering the Sefer Dvarim. What is Sefer Dvarim? So I'll just go quickly through the first 4 ones. What is the first one? The first one is the book of creation. But it's not only the book of creation, it's the book of our stories of our forefathers, right? And it's really the creation of every human being. And we're really recreating ourselves every moment. Through the book of Bereshit, we see how we personally are being created. Okay, so that's quickly, right? The second book, Shmot, is about exile and redemption, right? So how do we, each one of us goes through exile and redemption. How do we actually process exile in our lives? Everything that we symbolically call exile in our lives. And how do we symbolically, metaphorically process the whole idea of coming out from exile to redemption, right? That's Sefer Shmot. Then we have Va'ikra, which is the book of work, right? Really, because it's called Sefer Avodah. It's really the book of all the korbanot and everything. And it's not only about how to, butcher the animal or how to put it on the mizbeach or whatever. It's more about how every animal is within us, because what we call nefesh be'emit, we have the animal soul inside us, right? And we want to sanctify it and make it a spiritual soul. We don't want to just be on the level of nefesh, which is the connection between our body and our soul. We want to go deeper and deeper into ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida. We want to go deeper into our. We don't want to just be like an animal that knows. Oh, I emotionally know that I want to eat now. I emotionally know that I want to reproduce now. We want to be much holier than that. We want to think on much deeper level and learn to use our consciousness on a much deeper level. So the Sefer Va'ikra teaches us how to do that, right? That's what it's called, Sefer Avodah. And then we go through Bamidbar. We all go through our desert in life, right? And then, if you notice, Devarim brings us into the new year. When we finish Devarim, we enter the new year, right? So what's Sefer Devarim? Sefer Devarim is about the laws. And if you notice, when does it come? It comes after we've finished this whole process of Sfirat HaOmer, becoming Menches, going through this, hard emotional transition of Tisha B'Av and rebuilding our own holy temple, right? And then with that, we come into Sefer Devarim, and we actually, after we've rebuilt on Tisha B'Av, we basically, what do we say on Tisha B'Av to ourselves? We say, by saying, I want to rebuild my own holy temple, we're saying, I want to re-sanctify what's really important to me in life. What are those values that are really important to me in life? After I've gone through the process of Sfirat HaOmer, and I got reintroduced to myself of who I really am, and after I've gone through the Sefer of Bamidbar, which brings me to Tisha B'Av, I want to know what takes me to exile, or I know now what took me to exile, and I know that not to exile, through the desert, what took me from the desert, what brings me to Eretz Yisrael. Like Rav Nachman says, Eretz Yisrael is my own Eretz, is my inside Eretz Yisrael. And with doing that, I'm re-sanctifying on Tisha B'Av what are my spiritual values. What is going to rebuild the world? What is going to rebuild every individual spiritually? And what is going to build society spiritually? What are the moral values that are going to build our society, right? And it's like somebody said to me, I got to throw it in there, please forgive me, somebody said to me, the other day, that they're really worried about the world, not vaccinating themselves, and they're saying, I don't care about myself, I care about the rest of the world that they're going to get sick. I said, but I care about the freedom of the world. And you, for example, I know that you care for other aspects of the freedom of the world. It's just this aspect you don't realize, that we're still entitled to freedom in the world, right? So each one of us understands certain aspect of what's important spiritually to the world, right? One understands sexual freedom, another understands financial freedom, another understands medical freedom, right? Another understands spiritual freedom, right? We all understand it from what's important to us, but in the end, it's the spiritual and the moral values that are going to be at the foundation of the world. There are all the other things, all these aspects that I mentioned are only garments. They're not the foundation. They're not the gal'in. They're not the core. They're the garments of the issue. The issue is, how do I look at the world and really ask myself, how do I really keep it a world of values, a world of moral values, a world of spiritual values? Do I really ask myself, how do we sanctify those, right? For me, for every individual and as a society. And with that, we come into Sefer Dvarim, which brings us to a new year, which brings new light into the world. Right? Rosh Hashanah, the month of Tishrei, brings in a new light into the world. So, and Sefer Dvarim, what is Sefer Dvarim? The book of laws, right? So now Hashem says, after you've gone through this whole process of the year, what do I tell you? I tell you, these are the laws that will protect you from ruining the world. Here, you figured out you wanted to come out from exile to redemption. You figured out what it looks like being in the desert. You walked out of there. You re-sanctified your important values. And now I'm showing you how to rebuild the world with these laws. And with this, you come into the new year with a new light in the world.
Wow, I never heard of that. That's the process of the Torah.
Basically. And it's interesting to see how every book is in correlation, thank you so much, with the holidays, with the month. Every parasha, yeah.
Because I wondered why all these laws are all reiterated over and over again.
Right.
I didn't see it as a process.
Right. Yeah. Should we sing another song before we go? Okay, so let's ask Hashem to be king over the world, and if we spoke about Rosh Hashanah, and the whole world should embrace that Hashem is the king, and that all we want is a world of peace, a world of spiritual values, of moral values, of loving each other, of